Hello everyone and welcome to Hasian Education World. In today's tutorial we're going to see how to read and write to text files in Python. First we will see how to open text files in Python and then how to write to text files in Python, and finally we will see how to read text files in Python. So let's begin. Let's edit a file here to write our code. Let's give it a name. Write read, for example, .py. Okay. We will edit it using our Python editor. You can choose any editor you are familiar with, and we will start writing our code. So before starting to write to a file, we need first to open it, and there are two methods to open a file in Python. We'll start with the first one. We will declare a variable for opening a text file, and then we use the built-in method open, and then we open the parentheses and we give it the arguments. The first one is the file name. Let's call it test.txt, and the second argument is the mode of opening the file. So there are several modes. Let's start with one of them, which is W, standing for write. This is the write mode. Okay, and then we can run this file, this code, and see the result, because if the file doesn't exist, the write method will create the file and write to it. Let's test this. Run. Okay. Let's see here, and you see there is a new file created, test.txt. So this is the first method to open a text file or a file in general in Python. And the downside of this method is that the file will remain opened when we finish working with it. There is one method. We can add a line here to check the status of our file, if it is closed or open. So it's file tst dot close. This will give us the status, and we will print this. Print. Okay, let's run our code again, and you see our file was open, but here we have a false output, which means that our file is not closed. So in this first method, we will need to explicitly close our file by adding another line and using another method, which is the close method. So we will need to add file tst close method. Okay, let's run our code again and see the difference. So here our file was closed. You can see here the true output, which means that our file is closed. So with this method, You should not forget closing the file to avoid any unexpected problems, especially with memory and with large files. Let's move to the second method. So I will close this window. I will, okay, maybe I will just comment it here to keep it. And I will use the second method to open file using Python. With open, we use the same argument, the file name.txt. Let's call this file test1 to create another file. And the mode of opening the file, let's use W to write. Okay, maybe you have noticed that we still didn't write anything to our file. We are just opening the file. So here, if I will open the file, it's empty because we still didn't write anything to it. But we will do it in a few seconds, okay? And we give a name to the variable for opening the file. We can use the same name, file tst, and that's it. Here we need to write what we will do with our file. For the time being, we will do nothing, just to see this opening method and the difference between this method and the previous one. So let's run. Okay, here you see there is test1.txt which is created. But what is the difference? With this method, the file is closed automatically without adding any line of code. So we will still use this command to test, to check the status. Okay, print file tst closed to see if it is closed. Let's run it again. And here it returns true, which means our file is closed. So let's see how to write now into the file. So we are already using the W mode. W stands for write, and we will remove the pass and put really a line of code to write into that file. So to write to our file, we will use the write method to our object, and in the parameters we will give the text we need to write to our file. So for example, let's write something here and go to a new line, and we close the parentheses, and we will remove this. No need now to check the status, because we know now that the second method will close our file as soon as we finish working with it. And that's it. So let's run the code. Okay, and let's check our file, and we see here our line of the text is written there in the file. So what to do next? Our file is containing only one line. If we want to add a new line, we will use the append mode. So we will change this. We will need to change the mode from W to A. Okay, I will explain to you why. Because if we keep the W here and we want to add another line here to the same file, it will overwrite what was written before. We can make a test. Okay, so let's add a second line here, adding a second line. Let's remove this. Okay, W, this is the write mode. Let's run the code. Okay, let's check our file. And here the second line is written, but the previous first line is not there anymore. So let's write it back and use the append method. Let's write something here. Okay, this will write to our file, run, check our file again. Okay, now we want to add a second line to this file, so we will use the A instead of W. A stands for append. And we will change here the second line, adding a second line. Okay, let's run our code, open our file, and here we have 2 lines. Okay, so this is how to write to text files in Python using the built-in methods, write and open to open the files. So we have seen how to open text files, how to write to them. Let's see now how to read these files. So let's close the file. So we will still use the same method to open the file, and here we will use the read mode. Okay, R stands for reading, and we will remove this code to write, and we will this time we will read. So we will use the read method. Okay, so this line will read the method, but in order to see it in our screen, we will need to print. Okay. Oh, sorry. Let's use another variable here first. For example, let's give it a name, file out, for output of the reading, and then we will print this variable in order to see what was read by our code. Okay, so file out. I think it's okay like this. Let's run our code. And okay, so here we will read from our screen. The print function, you can see here, the text of our file was read. So this is the read method. The read method will read the text, all the text as a string, as one block, and it will give us an output like this. I'm telling you this because there are still other methods to read from our text files. We will see some of them just now. The first one is read lines. So instead of using the read method, we will use the read lines method and see what is the difference in the output. Okay, so let's run our code. And here you see that the output is a little bit different. You can notice here that we have brackets. It means that this is a list, and inside we have two elements separated by a comma, and these elements are in fact our lines. So every element in the list is one line from our text. So what does this method do? The read lines will read the text as a string also, but it will split it into a list of lines, and this can be useful. We can see later in some other videos how this may be useful, especially to iterate. If we, for example, we will need to make a loop, a for loop to iterate in our text, it will be better to iterate in a list instead of iterating in a string. Okay, so this is the read lines method. Let's see another method, which is the read line. So we will remove just one S here, and we use read line instead of read lines. So let's run the code and see. Okay, what is this? This is sorry, the output is one line. This is the first line of our text. Let's write something here. So the read line will read just one line of our file. So what will happen if we will add another read line just after it? Let's make a test to see clearly what does this method do. Run, and you see this time the output is adding a second line. This time just the second line was printed. So if we see our code here, this line will read the first line of our text file, and then this line will read the second line, the next line, and when we print, it will print the last line, which was red, and in this case this is the second line. So the read line method will read one line at a time. Okay, so this is how to read text files. We have seen some different methods to read. Now we will see one optional parameter for the read method, which is size, and by default it will read all the file content. Okay, but if we want, okay, just to show you, it's better to type in the code. So let's use this code to show you the parameter size. So here you see this parentheses are empty. There is no parameter inside, but we can use the optional parameter size, for example 10, and see what we will get in the result. Sorry, we will remove one L here. This is the read. Okay, we can run the code, and we see the output here. Let's read here we are having just the the 10 first characters, because we have typed here 10. So if we want to limit the reading to a fixed number of characters, we set the parameter of the read method to the desired value. And if we don't use any parameter here, it will use the default, which is reading all the file content. So that's the end of our video. I hope that you've enjoyed it. If it's the case, please like the video and subscribe to my channel to receive notifications about the new videos in Hazian education world. Thanks for watching and see you in the next videos.